Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 13. A Nightmare of a Time. They lowered the first load in the field near the skinning stations. The field gave the dragons the needed area to land, but kept the logs near enough to the wood storage barn that the wood splitters did not have to carry them too far after processing the logs. Hiccup looked around as the dragons moved away from the net. No one was waiting for them. Hiccup looked over to the skinning stations and found no one there either. "Typical Hiccup," Snotlout groused. "Are you even sure this is the right spot?" "Hush, hatchling," Hookfang said. "Something's wrong." "I am no!" Snotlout's comment was cut off by a pain-filled roar coming from the village plaza. Hiccup jumped off Toothless and bolted, ignoring Toothless and Astrid yelling for him. He slid to a stop just as the young nightmare entered the village plaza in full. Hiccup's eyes widened. The nightmare was dribbling fire and walking as if something was wrong with one of his legs. The Vikings and other dragons yelled for him, but the nightmare ignored him. "Hiccup!" Hiccup turned as his father rushed forward. "What's going on?" Hiccup asked. "A boar," Stoic began. "It got loose and went on a rampage. It would have taken out Sven's sheep, but that dragon fought it. The dragon got hurt in the fight." Hiccup ran around his father before anyone could say or do anything. His father yelled. Astrid yelled. Toothless yelled. Hiccup ignored them. That nightmare was hurt, and Hiccup knew it was his fault. He had let the dragon go with the hunters after all. The nightmare saw him as he got closer and began to hiss and growl. Hiccup heard several people and dragons gather around, but ignored them as well. He held his hands up in a placating manner and eased forward towards the nightmare. "Easy," he said softly. "Easy. Remember me?" The nightmare shook and then whimpered and hissed. Hiccup walked closer. "Easy," he said with a bit more force. "It's okay. It's okay." The nightmare took a deep breath. "Alpha," he whimpered with difficulty. "It's me," Hiccup said, easing forward. Hiccup held out one palm, facing the nightmare. The young dragon hesitated, and then pressed his nose into Hiccup's palm. Hiccup began to scratch the nightmare's nose. The nightmare all but fell against Hiccup's frame. "It hurts!" I know. Can you tell me where?" "Lower jaw, left leg. Leg hurts more. Alpha, I'm sorry." "Shh," Hiccup said, rubbing the nightmare's nose. "You have nothing to apologize for. You did good. Shh. We'll get Gothi here. She'll make you feel better." You'll stay?" "I'm here. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Hiccup looked over his shoulder. "Someone get Gothi!" Astrid jumped onto Stormfly. The Nada screeched and took to the skies. Hiccup looked past his father to find Gita standing near Shadowfire and Lawkeeper. "Gita, come here!" Gita walked over. He said his lower jaw and his left leg hurt. Gita knelt, examining the nightmare's jaw. "Looks like it's just bruised deeply. There's no cuts or bleeding." She stood. "Can you open your mouth, young one?" The nightmare did, and Gita leaned in without hesitation. Yes, just bruised." She straightened. "Okay, you can close your mouth." The nightmare did, and hissed and whimpered. Hiccup curled one arm under the nightmare's jaw and scratched the top of the nightmare's nose with the other. Gita reached out, hand glowing green, and causing many watching to murmur or chitter to themselves. She hovered her hand over the point on the nightmare's jaw that Hiccup could not see due to where he stood. The nightmare purred. "Leg still hurts, but that feels nice." "I'm sorry, young one," Gita said softly. "I can't help your leg." "Gothi's coming," Hiccup said. "She'll look over your leg." Just as he finished, Stormfly landed beside him. He glanced over his shoulder, catching Astrid dismounted, and aided Gothi down. The elder did not seem bothered by Gita's glowing hand. She merely stared at Hiccup. "Left leg!" Gothi nodded and moved around Gita. She shuffled under the nightmare's wing and began to poke and prod. The nightmare growled and yowled. He tried to toss his head, but Hiccup grabbed his horn and pulled his head close. Shh, he said soothingly. Easy. She's just trying to find what's wrong so she can treat you. The nightmare calmed. Gothi moved out from under the wing and stepped to a spot Hiccup could see her and stay close to the nightmare. Gothi then wrote something in the dirt. Can you shift your weight onto your left leg? Stormfly moved and nosed herself under the nightmare's right wing. The nightmare hissed but leaned against her. Hiccup watched as Hookfang shuffled close and laid the top of his head alongside the wing draped over Stormfly. Barf and Belch moved and stuck their heads under Hookfang's neck. Meatlog moved in and nosed herself under the nightmare's left wing, careful to stay away from the leg. Toothless and Shadowfire walked closer. Toothless leaned into Meatlog and Shadowfire laid down so Toothless could use the bigger dragon's side to brace off of. Hiccup blinked when Astrid moved to his side and cradled the nightmare's head along with him. Gothi smiled and moved back to examine the leg. Silence fell for a bit. Elder Gothi wishes for you to try to bend your knee, young one, Gita said. The nightmare did and yowled. I can't! Gita shifted closer to the leg. The nightmare began purring. Gothi moved around to where Hiccup could see her and scribbled something else. Broke, but not too badly. Gothi nodded and wrote again. No flying? I can't fly again? No, Hiccup said. Just until your leg heals. Gothi fears that flying and landing will make it worse. How long? Gothi tilted her head and shook it and shrugged. Lawkeeper walked over. Alpha, Elder Gothi. The youngling should heal in a few weeks. Dragons tend to heal faster than humans if allowed to rest properly. Gothi nodded and scribbled another sentence. Splint the leg? Hiccup asked. Astrid stepped back, turned and ran off. Hiccup blinked, wondering where she went. He could not look due to holding the nightmare's head. He did not have to wander long, though. She returned with Edis. Both carried supplies to splint a broken limb. Hiccup nodded his head. Brynja and his woodcutting team often injured themselves to the point where they needed a splint. Hiccup looked at Astrid and smiled. She did not hesitate to get Gothi. She did not hesitate to help Hiccup comfort the Nada. She did not hesitate to go after her mother, who would know how and had the supplies to splint the nightmare's leg. Hiccup did not think he could admire her more than he did right then. Gothi smiled and nodded her head. She walked over to stand next to Stoic. Edis then handed Astrid the items she carried and gestured for Astrid to precede her. Astrid moved under the nightmare's wing. Edis whispered instructions, and soon both moved out from under the wing. He'll need rest, Edis said. It might be best if he was not near anything that might hurt his leg more. Hiccup frowned. That meant the nightmare could not rest near the place where they were unloading the logs. It was too close to the skinning stations. If another boar came in injured but not fully dead, it could harm the nightmare again. Also, there was a chance a log could roll free and hurt the nightmare. They could not leave him just anywhere, either. So they had to keep an eye on him and make sure he kept his leg as still as possible. He would also need a place to stay while his leg healed. His cave was too far to walk. He can stay with us, Hiccup, Edis said. I'll keep him company while I'm cooking stew for evening meal. Can I try some? Everyone laughed, and Edis reached over and scratched the nightmare's nose. Sure, brave one. With the aid of the other dragons, they got the nightmare to the Hoffersons. Edis went into the house and returned with a tattered fur blanket and her two youngest boys. She laid the blanket down and then stared at her sons and pointed to the nightmare. Do not bother him, she said. He is injured, and you will let him rest and recover. Clear? Clear, Nana, the boys said together. Edis looked up at the nightmare. If they do bother you, tell me, and I will make sure they leave you alone. The nightmare purred before looking at Astrid. Your mother is wonderful, Lady Alpha. You are lucky to have her. Astrid smiled and scratched the nightmare at the base of his horns. The nightmare purred again and nuzzled Astrid. Hiccup smiled. I'll be back later to check up on you, he said. The nightmare purred again and nuzzled Hiccup. Thank you, Alpha, he said before shuffling onto the blanket with Stormfly and Meatlug's help. The nightmare curled up as best he could, making sure his leg was not pinched in any way. Edith looked over. All right, show's over. Let the poor dragon rest. The crowd dispersed. Hiccup headed back to the net, but could not help but glance back. Frostfire and Pellwing stood next to Edith, and were talking to her. She nodded, and both dragons moved over and laid down next to the nightmare. From what Hiccup could see, all three were talking with each other. Hiccup smiled, and they went back to the plaza. Stoic waited, and walked over as they got close. Son, food is sorted. We don't need any more boars, though we still need to go for fish tomorrow. Get the twins to help you all with the logs. Hawk said we need 3 more hauls, like that first one you brought in, and we'll have enough for winter and for Gita's hut. Sure, Dad. And son, I'm proud of you. You handled that nightmare like a chief would. Hiccup smiled. Thanks, Dad. Stoic patted Hiccup's shoulder before he moved away. Hiccup felt a light punch to his arm. He turned, finding Astrid smiling at him. She leaned over and placed a short kiss on his lips. Hiccup blinked and smirked. I'm proud of you too, she said. Hiccup leaned forward, intending to kiss her. Toothless warbled loudly. Duties first, brother. Suffocating lip action later. Gita and Shadowfire cackled. Toothless looked back at them. Do you know what that act is called? He said. They didn't answer, and Stoic just laughed. Gita grinned and took a deep breath, wiping tears from her eyes. Yes, it's called kissing. Kissing, Toothless said slowly. Still looks like you two are suffocating each other. Should just nuzzle each other. Nice, sweet, effective. Can still breathe while doing it. What's Toothless talking about? Snortlout asked, walking over. Nothing, Hiccup said. We have work to do. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that young nightmare. He comes in clutch multiple times. He's a good sort. And, you know, he was so brave. He's like a brave kid just trying to help out. And he jumped in the way of that boar. And Hiccup just going forward, knowing that the kid wouldn't hurt him. And then Astrid being MVP and helping them out behind, working as a team. I love that. And Edith just taking everyone in. You know, not just this nightmare, but also Gita, Shadowfire, Frost and Pale. I just love that. She's just like, you know what? I haven't been doing my bit, so I'll do more than my bit. She's a queen. I love her. And she's raising a queen, so she did a good job. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.